I heard about this place about 10 years before I knew where it was. In fact, I would spend time on the internet trying to find it. One day I was reading the local business newspaper, and on the front cover of it was this place for sale, and went home and said, Susan, we got to buy this place. I've talked to Charles Harker, the architect. He describes this initial approach as being you're walking down a path through the woods, a curved path, and you come across this fantastic sculpture building. You're not sure, is it alive? Is it a creature? Is it a house? What is it? And it's intended to be a fantastic imaginary experience come alive. He tells me that this idea of walking through the path and coming across a building and asking, is it alive? What is it exactly? He tells me comes from the first Snow White movie, where there's a scene, the black and white version, where there's a scene where Snow White comes through the woods and there's a castle that talks to her. There are these 7 structures in front of the house, which he refers to as the 7 sentinels. But they obviously look like something from Disney. It's the 7 dwarfs. But he doesn't ever call those because, as we all know, Disney likes to sue people that infringe on their copyright and trademark. So it's the 7 sentinels. They go across, it's kind of like a drawbridge. So it's kind of like a castle. The water can flow through there just like it would a moat around a castle bridge.
Did he have a reference as somebody else who was doing this kind of thing?
So the Earth House was a concrete structure built in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a little bit south of here. That structure was curvilinear architecture, but they worked on it for decades. They never actually finished it, and it got tore down. I'm told that they would have these kind of impromptu music sessions. Frank Zappa came and visited, and that whole community was really the basis, the starting point for a lot of this kind of unusual, what I call curvilinear architecture movement. And Charles Harker was a part of that, who designed and built this place. We call it the Bloomhouse. The project was funded by a guy named Dalton Bloom. His parents had passed away and left him some money, so he had a trust fund. And he wanted to build something unique that would outlast him. The building process took 11 years for 2 reasons. One, it was a difficult building to build, and 2, that trust fund paid out every 2 years. So the first big chunk of money they used to grade the site and do the formwork for a traditional concrete slab foundation and a retaining wall on the front end of the slab to hold back the earth. Lots of rebar and steel went into that. Then they used steel rebar. They bent it into the general shape that they wanted the structure to be. They ran all the conduits for electrical, they ran all the plumbing, got all the duct work in place, and then they would hold up sheets of polyethylene plastic and they would shoot 2-part expanding polyurethane foam. Then Charles Harker spent, he tells me, 9 months out here with an 18-inch pruning saw, hand carving the foam to exactly the shape that he wanted. So after they got the foam cut the way they wanted it, they applied chicken wire to it, and then about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of this concrete stucco, a special mix that they got from an Italian mason. What's remarkable is they had to hand carry down every bag of Portland cement, every bag of sand, every bag of lime, hand mix that stuff with water, and then hand apply it. So the Earth House, they were using shotcrete, and so they would spray a layer onto that structure and they would trowel it. This was substantially more difficult to do. But as a result, you get a much smoother, consistent finish to it. You can get a better shape with it. All of these intricate shapes could only be done hand troweling. And even then, I've done some repair work. It's incredibly difficult to get these shapes with this level of detail, because this is, solid concrete.
So if it cracks, what do you do?
So I have some tricks.
Yeah.
Somebody sat or stood on this thing and cracked it about a year ago. I have a special tool where I can dig out the crack, use caulk to fill it in, and then I sprinkle sand on the caulk so it gets this texture, and then paint over it. So you can see little dents and dings from over the years. It's certainly not perfect. There have been cracks that develop in the structure that have to be repaired, mostly to keep water from getting in.
That's just natural settling of a house.
Yeah, but it's really remarkable that it hasn't settled more. And I think it's because that foundation that they built was thick and full of steel. They were smart because they knew they were going to be putting a bunch of load on it. Even the cantilever in the tower, that's a tricky thing to do in any kind of structure. Charles told me that during construction, they were concerned that when people got out to the end, it would flex a bit. And sure enough, once they've put the first layer of concrete on, it would start to crack because it would flex. So they added another steel member in the kitchen that comes straight up under the chin. So the cantilever went much further originally, but they added that in to kind of stabilize the whole structure.
Okay. So as they went, they were adjusting.
Yeah, so he didn't have blueprints. He had some initial drawings, but he had a general outline of where he wanted things to be. He had drawn that much of it up, and he had to do some drawings for the foundation. But a lot of the decisions that they made were made in the field as they were doing it. So
They didn't need a structural engineer to okay things, or there was no permitting going on?
this was in the 1970s. This is not a part of any city, so we're in Travis County, and everybody calls this area Austin, but this actually is not a part of the city of Austin. And so the only permit he needed to get was for the septic system.
What? No! It's a dog.
Oh, it has an eye.
There's a tail.
Oh, or dragon?
Mom, it's a dog. Oh.
Wait, is there? Oh, that's a.
This is the prettiest house I've ever been.
I don't think you can deliver this far. Okay, next.
Wait.
Oh my god, dibs on this room.
Oh, very comfortable.
There's only one room. The other's the couch bed.
Hi, Papa. Hi, Papa. Let's go. Ta-da! That's the door. How do you get upstairs?
There's more space?
Let me show you. Come. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. There's already called there, so my bed.
It's not really another bedroom, is there?
It is.
Oh. Oh, there's a bed up here.
I already called dibs, sorry. You can have it.
It's overwhelming to come in here because it doesn't feel like any other space.
Yeah.
You don't expect it either. You see the outside and you don't know that the inside's going to mirror that. And be so, I don't know what to call it, organic, curvilinear.
I say it's discombobulating. So many people tell me when they first walk in, they're disoriented because our brain is not used to this sort of thing. And if it had been all on one level, our brain would maybe be able to assimilate a little bit more because it might feel like a tunnel or a cave. But this being on all these different levels really makes it unusual. I've had a lot of people come in, and most people have the same reaction you just did, which is like, it's a little disconcerting. But it takes about 20 minutes or so, and I found if you sit down and you make contact with it, it helps. Like your brain can do more with it when it feels the texture and it can start to process things. So this is a little space where someone can sit and someone else could sit over there. I've seen people sit up on this structure like it's a camel. You can kind of park yourself in a lot of places, and the curves are naturally comfortable, even though they're concrete.
So, I mean, it really isn't all one level. You don't actually know how big the house is when you come in. You don't even know where's the bedroom, you can't find anything.
Yes. So it took me a good year
To map it.
in my brain. Like right now, you're standing right behind the bed headboard, but you maybe don't know that. In a normal house, most people can plot it out pretty quickly, but it took me years to really get to where I know exactly where things were. And a lot of it was, I was digging in some of the walls and the ceilings. I'm like, oh, look, that's right there.
You were doing some of the remodel?
Yeah, when we purchased it, there were a lot of cracks on the building, so water was getting in. Water pipes had calcified in. So there were people living here, and they had to carry down a 5-gallon bottle of water just to flush the toilets. Charles obviously put a lot of work and thought into the exterior of this building. I mean, it just looks phenomenal from the outside, but most of his attention was focused here inside. He's told me that these accents that are in place are meant to be kind of like a dog's elbow, where the bone is sticking through the flesh and the fur, and it's supposed to remind you or make you think that this is a living creature, and you're seeing the bones coming out of the skin. Even this little indentation all the way around all of the wood pieces is supposed to be evocative of that notion. But there's so many little details that he put in place that he didn't have to. Like this, like why would you need... But here, it all kind of works to reinforce this notion that you're in something completely unique. Exactly. Down here in the living room, the fireplace has this spiral that goes up. Well, this spiral matches the spiral staircase that goes up to the tower. And the idea was, he was a pioneer of energy efficiency. So when you have a building that's made out of 10 to 12 inches of styrofoam, you have great energy efficiency. So while it has a traditional air conditioning system and heater, like most homes, he really wanted it to take advantage of nature and the cooling air. So there's 3 sets of sliding glass doors in the building, and down below us is the ravine where the dry creek is. And the idea is that cooler air is kind of nature's air conditioning. So if you open up this door and you open up the door in the tower, it kind of creates this Venturi effect where it sucks the cool air into the building and brings it up the stairs. So you have this natural ventilation that happens. By thinking about ventilation, he was able to reduce energy costs. Another interesting thing he did is the air conditioning system comes through in, I believe there's a total of 4 of these sort of porthole looking things. And they're all strategically located near the places where there's the most heat loss. So this one blows on this glass wall because theoretically there's going to be a lot of heat gain in the summer and heat loss during the winter. So by blowing the conditioned air onto this, you minimize the need for conditioned air everywhere else. But the building has these curtains. The flow of the space is interesting because he had to hide the curtains. He wanted them to be, he knew that people were going to want to have curtains, but how do you hide them? Well, you put them in this weird structure that serves a purpose but looks like it's part of the organic flow of the building. He spent a lot of time thinking about how to hide those air conditioning registers. And he didn't just completely bury it and try to make it invisible. He really highlighted it.
It's like a nostril.
Yeah, it really, you know what? I'd never seen that before, but you're right.
Yeah.
Every little detail of the building is just really mesmerizing.
And even the floor.
Yeah. The floor has a great story. So this is a concrete slab, and he knew he needed to put something down. He wanted to use circles because he thought of it as when you take a plant stalk and slice it, you see the capillaries coming up through it. And he really wanted to have a nod to that idea of the life, nature flowing up and through here. So at first he tells me he was going to use discs of cedar log. And thank God he didn't do that because it's a very unstable wood. It would have splintered apart. So he told me he handmade every one of these tiles, and they are all in fantastic shape. I mean, there's several thousand of them. So the kitchen cabinets start off as kind of your standard square rectangular plywood cases. They placed them at different angles. So for the dishwasher, there's a plywood cabinet. There's a plywood cabinet back here, plywood cabinet in here. But then he added hand-carved cherry to kind of pull it all together. All of the drawer fronts, all of the accents started off as big chunks of cherry that were bolted into the structure during the construction process. And Charles would come out with a red crayon and a blue crayon. And he'd mark with a red crayon where he wanted them to carve it back, and a blue crayon where he wanted it to stay proud. And over the course of months, artists with grinders and sanders would kind of grind back to what he wanted. So imagine this was all one big kind of chunk of cherry. It was cut out for the shape of what was going to be here, but they slowly carved all of this shape over months with all of this in place. There are no doorknobs or pulls. Everything has a little lip that you can grab. It's all very thick cherry that was sculpted in place, and that took forever, I'm sure. And again, it's supposed to mimic sort of the bones of the creature pushing through the flesh around it, and this little indentation is key to that.
It's really hard to find any handles here.
I took me a while.
You have to hunt for it. It's kind of one of the fun aspects of it.
And this hood.
I will say I made that. We had to replace all the K11 ceiling acoustic material because after 40 or 50 years of people cooking bacon and probably smoking cigarettes and God knows what else, it had turned a nasty gray. And so venting the cooktop was really important. So I bought a vent hood, butchered it, put it into a wooden case, and then I used an angle grinder to grind all this cherry down. And so the fan blows through a charcoal filter to keep it all clean.
And the built-ins just continue back here.
Yeah, and up above that built-in is storage area. It's not the most convenient storage area in the world, but you can put things up there. At one time, you could put suitcases and stuff up there. One of the big maintenance challenges we have here is humidity. Groundwater comes up through the floor sometimes, and the building can get very humid. So we added a whole house dehumidifier up there. Earlier, when I talked about they added a post to stabilize the cantilever, that's this post. It's a steel column that runs up from the foundation up into the bottom of the neck of the tower. And he decorated it to look kind of like a lily. But it's one of those examples of function driving art and form, but you wouldn't know.
No.
It's not completely without its problems. When we moved in, they had a much smaller refrigerator in there, and I couldn't understand why. It was old, so we got rid of it. And when it came time to buy a new refrigerator, I bought this one, and then realized there's no way to get it in the kitchen. It would not fit through either of these openings. So I had to notch into this structure and take a big chunk out of it. And then me and my sons manhandled that refrigerator through this space and got it and then put it back together. And so that refrigerator is never going anywhere. It's here forever. We tried to get it around here. I didn't want to screw up the shelves, which it's not just a set of shelves. It has this additional artistic form that, again, you don't need that. And even the sculpting up underneath it to kind of make it look thinner than it is. And then the main post that goes up to the ceiling, okay, it's supporting it, but then it keeps going and looks like a rib. Charles told me, someone asked him soon after it was finished, why don't you put up more art on the walls? And he's like, it is art. They detract from, you're gilding the lily if you try to put something in here. This is the original cherry table that they built. It's designed to kind of push back into that space. The table can move, those benches are bolted in. But this is a great place to hang out. I sit like right here because this shape is perfectly fits my 55-year-old back. It's perfect. This little cave runs up under the foyer area. It goes much further than you think. And the acoustics are really cool. It does feel like a cave. Some kids have slept back in there.
And guess what? You have to come in. No, you have
What?
to.
It keeps coming, right?
Oh, pretty deep. Wait, can I slip in here? I can fully extend my body.
It's just a nice little cocoon. It was for storage because Dalton was rather messy, and Charles noticed this. And so a lot of the stuff that he designed, the closets, he designed it so that everything would be stored back around a curve and you wouldn't see it. So he was helping Dalton to hide his clutter.
There's actually another nook up there.
Oh.
But that one you have to climb onto.
Oh, yeah,
this,
you're right.
and then
Wow.
there.
There's so many strange, it's a compressed space. It's supposed to be sort of a seashell, sort of a conch shell thing, but it's got lots of weird openings and gaps in it where the light comes through. Here's another one of the air conditioning vent outlets, and it blows on this area, again, to try to wash this window with heat or cool, depending on the season, because this is where you're going to get the most energy losses out these glass doors. Well, so if the curtains are up, you're not really able to blow air onto the glass. So that's actually a hole that comes up here and out. So air is pushed through and ends up coming behind the curtains to cool or heat the space between the curtain and the glass. So right up through there.
So that's functional.
Yeah.
I mean, that's too.
And design-wise.
It feels like part of the shell. You don't know that there's a real art.
Who would think of this? So, and when you're laying down with your head on the pillows, you're looking up inside the conch shell. And so the acoustics there are really cool too. But it was built originally and designed for a circular bed. They don't make a lot of those anymore. They're kind of hard to find, so we went with the traditional queen-size bed. But a circular bed just fits in this place perfectly. It tucks right up against the wall.
It's interesting because now I'm looking at it and I hadn't even thought until now that there's no wall. But
Yeah.
you don't realize that.
Yeah. The only privacy break in the whole building is the bathroom door.
But
The whole space flows together.
But somehow the structure gives you that feeling that you have.
Right, yeah, like, so nobody's going to be crawling up over and peeking down at you on that. They might come down the stairs, but it's still enormously private, and you feel integrated to your own little space. You don't feel like you're in the whole house. You know, it kind of fades away. A lot of it is because when you're in bed, even the stairs are hidden from your view here, so you really feel like you're in your own chamber. But like I said, Charles designed the closets, this one, and especially that one, so you had to walk into it, then people wouldn't necessarily be able to see all the crap you have shoved back there. This one, you know, the curtain track comes all the way over here, so you can close it off. So I love this little dresser area here. There's mirrors on all three sides, so you can stick your head in and see infinite versions of yourself. So this is the only door in the space, only interior door to the bathroom. Everything else flows together. So this was a big pain in the butt during the renovation. It's very hard to retrofit a new sliding door in this space. But the bathroom is amazing as you would think. And this is another one of those places where he used opposing mirrors to kind of play tricks.
This mirror reminds me of a butterfly wing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It almost feels like there's motion happening.
Yep, yep. But all these little shelves are for different doodads. This countertop, it was rotted out and we had to redo all of this space down underneath it. But more of the sort of the,
Round.
yeah,
Just hugs the wall.
yeah. A lot of people really dig the bathtub shower area. We added these things for safety because, again, if you start to slip and fall, you can't really grab onto anything. So these are nice and sturdy. But the plumbing was very messed up here. The hot water heater used to be under here. It was a small hot water heater and it was just a wreck. So we had to dig around the outside of the building and bring new water lines in. This one comes up and over and back in here to feed the sink and to feed the toilet. That was a ton of work, cutting through this concrete, cutting through the foam and making a new channel to run the piping was no easy feat. The shower curtain track becomes the window curtain track.
Oh, wow. So You could start taking them around.
Yeah, take it all the way around.
Yeah.
Little shelves back in here. We did add an exhaust fan because it would get pretty humid in here.
Plants probably love it.
Yeah, oh, I have to trim them back about every 6 months. They come all the way down here onto the floor.
And the bathroom too, the toilet is like, I love that there's a this sort of built-in wood there.
Oh, this is one of my favorite things. Charles was a Renaissance man. He wanted to give the ladies a great place where they could do their makeup. So who wouldn't want to sit on the toilet and work on their makeup down here like that? Isn't that great?
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah. The intention was good, but maybe the execution wasn't all that great. Yeah, so this is our air conditioning system.
Well hidden.
Yes, and this door is another great example of the carving.
Yeah. Looks like there's another shower.
So the outdoor shower, it's just the best. We're here in a well-developed part of Austin. So there's big houses up there and across up there, but especially in the summer when the foliage is green, they can't see you and you can't see them. And they certainly can't see you at night if you're in the shower. I mean, even during the day, they can't see you taking a shower. So it's incredibly private. It's great to just, at the end of the day, have a quick shower. He put a lot of thought into how water would flow on the building. So if you look up there at the very top, it's pitched to flow through that little notch, and it comes down the side of the tower. You can see there's also sort of a gutter-looking appurtenance where water flows off of the deck of the tower. It flows onto the main body of the structure and then goes in different directions. Some of it comes out this little notch and falls down here. There was originally a cedar tree in that circular well space. A lot of the water comes over here and into a scupper that flows through a pipe and down, I call it the flume, down this little channel into that space. And I asked Charles about it shortly after I bought the house. He said, well, the water, this is a great example of man and nature symbiosis. The tree shades the building and the building provides water to the tree. And I said, well, bad news, the tree's gone. It had died years ago, but it still makes a cool little space. And there's a French drain under there that drains it out down the hillside.
Was he inspired by nature?
Absolutely. So he spent a lot of time and wrote quite a lot about the symbiosis of man and nature in architecture, how important it is to have the structure be integrated to the land rather than forcing a giant rectangle onto a piece of land. Here are his notebooks with his drawings of ideas and inspirations. It's just a lot of just amazing little sketches and designs, some of which you can see hints of it in the final product.
It says water hitting water. Doesn't it look like the bed?
He picked up a bunch of books he could get from Gaudi, and then he actually has a quote here from Gaudi. It's just silhouette is born of the structure itself.
Obviously, Gaudi was a huge influence on his vision for this property, but also he thought a lot about how man and nature are supposed to live together in symbiosis. And this was really a great property for it because the slope and the different levels of the limestone ledge really lent itself to having to solve some of those problems creatively. So before we bought it, the people that lived here had 2 kids. One was a girl, and she would write bad poetry on the walls up here. Oh, wait, there's more. Didn't know there were 3. Thought there were just 2. All right.
Oh, the steps too we haven't talked about. Look at, just how they're shaped.
Yes, they hand-built this spiral staircase on site. There is a 6-inch steel oil drilling pipe at the center of it. So Charles Harker had connections into the oil and gas industry. In fact, the building took 11 years to build, in part because the trust fund paid out every 2 years. And when there was a lull in the money, they'd have to stop construction. Particularly during the oil crisis of the 70s, the trust fund, which was heavily invested in oil and gas, didn't pay out as much. So Charles had to go work in the oil fields of the Gulf of Mexico. But here in the center of this is this oil pipe, a 6-inch steel oil pipe, and then they built the paddles for the staircase off it. Then built the structure, sort of the cage around it, which sort of informed how it looks from the outside. The bulges and things that you see on the outside are really connected to how much headroom they wanted to have as they're coming up and down the stairs. But even like the ribs here, he didn't have to add these, but they just, especially looking down, just this amazing abstract flow of these shapes are very cool.
Beautiful.
So it's just such a cool little place to come up and hang out, read a book.
Yeah.
People have had their kids live up here. And it's, if you're under 6 feet, it's pretty comfortable. And all of this seating, sleeping area, it's kind of really cool. So there's storage underneath here, but why this? This is like a little place, I guess, to put your drink or whatever, but like, just that he thought this through.
But he knew there'd be a mattress on top.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Or cushions or something. And it's a super comfortable space.
Yeah.
If you're tall, not so much. But all of these sort of rib looking things, most of them are related to the steel structures that come back and tie into this oil pipe. But, he dresses them up. And there's a chamber here. This light bulb over here can be seen because there's another air chamber there. No,
Is this blowing? That's
the airflow, and it's coming to this window.
This is the eye of the dog, was my kid's thought,
Yeah,
right?
right, exactly. And you can see the path up the hill that we started
Right.
with.
Okay, yeah.
You want to go out?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Kind of have to squeeze through there. Yeah, so he designed this as another one of these intimate places for people to hang out. Someone would sit there behind you, and someone would sit over here and put up their feet and plop their arm and probably have a beer and hang out and talk to the other person over there.
It's the acoustics, right?
You're right. It's bouncing off of here and off that. It's really, it's very
bouncing off
trippy.
everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
Right away, I sat there. And,
Yeah. Sound engineers love this place because it's got so many weird angles that bounce the sound around in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
But from here you can survey the land and see all the hillside. And
Right.
in a lot of architecture today, everybody wants a big space, big dining room, big living room, big kitchen and living room, open floor plan type thing. And Charles was really about intimate spaces, not for 50 people, but for 2 or 3 people. He wrote a lot about how he felt the housing industry was really pushing this unhealthy rectangles, like let's put boxes. This was the ranch style houses were taking off, particularly in this part of the country. And he just found them so boring. He wasn't necessarily advocating that everybody build something like this, but he really thought a lot and spoke a lot about how architecture was kind of going in the wrong direction, especially for homes. And that our mental health is tied to where we live. And that resonates today for a lot of people. And so if you're stuck in a giant apartment building with 1,000 units and you're just unit number 389 and yours is exactly like unit number 388 and 390, that opportunity for individualism and to connect to where you're spending most of your time, where you're sleeping, that's lost. I mean, I get that not everybody can live in a crazy shaped house like this, but I hope that more people invest the time and the energy to make their own spaces unique and interesting and to kind of nourish them and feed them for the emotional aspects of life that aren't getting fed pretty much anywhere else. All right. Here, what's it look like from here?
Looks like some sort of animal.
Sure. I think it looks like a rabbit. And it's got kind of one ear sticking up, maybe the other ear is flopping down on the other side. But like every different direction you look at it, it looks like something different. So it kind of looks like a dog when you're coming down the hill, right?
Yeah.
From the other side, it looks a little more like a dragon or a pelican. So that's what's so cool about this place. It looks different from every angle for every person.
Yeah. Looks like a baby deer.
Ah, yeah.
What was it like? Was it supposed to be anything?
The architect, the dude that designed it, if you ask him what's it supposed to be, he's like, what do you think it's supposed to be? Like, he won't tell you. He lets everybody figure it out for themselves. Isn't that cool? Because so much art is people telling you what you're looking at and telling you how it should make you feel. But this place, it's all yours. You get to decide on your own.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
Kind of cool.
I like this place.
Me too.